this actually I want to make this point after the last segment we just did, because you had Sean Hannity pretending that Joe Biden is weak, and Joe Biden has been using and flexing military power and his influence over his allies in a very negative way, where he's twisting the arm of Japan, Australia, and India to follow U.S. demand. That's why India and United States relations has soured, because India is like, we're not going to sacrifice our best interests in order for you to go to war with Russia. We're going to continue our trade with Russia. We're going to continue our trade with China. And the United States is very upset with them for doing that. But countries that are not doing that, countries that are not doing what Turkey is doing, that fight against NATO influence in the West, Australia and Japan has been 100% cuts of the U.S. empire. And to be honest, a lot of it's not even their fault. When I had a friend explain this to me, like when you look at the political power the United States have in Australia, they will destroy Australian politicians. They have Japan on lock. Japan, who've been ruled by their neoliberal parties. Shinzo Abe, who recently died, was really closely connected to Neera Tanden in the Center for American Progress, really friendly with a lot of neocons. That's why when Shinzo Abe died, everyone was extremely sad in the establishment, because that was someone who was very close with the West. So Japan, Imperial Japan is back. A country that mostly demilitarized has now doubled the military spending on order of the United States. So the United States is forcing Europe, Germany to militarize, forcing the UK and other countries to spend more on their defense spending than ever before. And this played a big part of why the West wants to expand NATO, because NATO requires countries to spend at least 2% of their budget on weapon spending. It's all corruption. And it's unbelievable that the NATO left is not saying that, which is why I have no respect for them. No respect. It's the most obvious corruption story that they are missing. Now let's go to what I'm bringing up here. Biden is selling U.S. nuclear machines, submarines, to Australia to counter China. Now, Caitlin Johnstone, if you guys don't subscribe to her, you guys should. She has done a lot of great writings over how the United States essentially forced Australia to take their geopolitical positions, and the propaganda in Australia regarding Ukraine and regarding China is probably just as bad as the BBC in England, in the UK. They have been aggressively pushing war against China, aggressively in an unhinged way. Now they are sending these submarines to Australia for regional, and this from the tweet from NPR, for regional security and stability. My question is, what about sending nuclear submarines that escalates war against a geopolitical war power? How does that lead to regional security and stability? It does not. The United States is putting everyone in danger. And now this is China. Response to this, and let me take this off here. Once again, you have the establishment, the liberal establishment, even the Fox News establishment, that's pretending that China is in the wrong here. Look at the headline. China issues ominous threat to Biden over the Australian nuclear submarine deal. I don't know. What seems more ominous to you guys? Sending nuclear submarines to Australia, or someone saying, hey, maybe you shouldn't do that? You guys see how ridiculous the framing is here? When they come from Fox News, anytime Russia or China does anything that makes sense to protect their sovereignty, they say, oh my God, they're escalating. Are we sending nuclear submarines over here? Now, this is another one here. China warns AUKUS. I think that stands for US, UK, Australia. You've gone down a dangerous road with nuclear subs deal. This comes from Politico. China saying the fucking obvious. And China has been way more aggressive against the West. They've recently gone on tour and said the West is responsible for pursuing endless war, destabilizing their economy and the economy of Africa. They recently rebuked the United States on their occupation of Syria. So China had enough. And this is why you got Western people predicting this conflict, because as China continue to criticize and defend itself against the West more, the more you're gonna have Biden, Tucker Carlson, DeSantis, and these people be bloodthirsty towards them. A few more receipts, and I'm gonna get to the last ammo story before we wrap up. China says U.S., UK, Australia nuclear submarine deal put allies on path of error and danger. Once again, obvious to everyone, right? Which is why NPR framing, the framing that comes from the United States, makes more sense. We're going to send weapons for security and stability. This is the gaslighting. We're going to bomb for peace. Ignorance is strength. Freedom is slavery. That's what coming from the West. So my last video I want to show, I want to give you guys a response to this. There's Caitlin Johnstone. Now, this is John Mearsheimer, who they have these moments, and I would love to know the psychology of it, where they just fucking say it. I don't know why they do it. It's almost like, you know how Dr. Evil and Austin Powers, you know the James Bond villain? In these movies, I always roll my eyes when these villains go do these long monologues. This is my evil plan. Ha 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 ha. You guys see how evil and brilliant we are? I'm always like, who the fuck actually does that? Meanwhile, over at the ruling class, these motherfuckers do it all the time. To be fair, this is this guy bragging over the influence that the United States have over Australia and why Australia is extremely hawkish toward China. Listen to this unhinged psychopath.
Now, the question is, what does this all mean for Australia? You're in a quandary for sure. Everybody knows what the quandary is. Security-wise, you really want to go with us. It makes just a lot more sense, right? And you understand that security is more important than prosperity?
You could not literally. That's probably one of the most evil quotes I've heard in my life. So this guy is saying, imagine how much Australia would benefit from being a positive trade partner with China. If they have positive relationship with China, and that's obvious to everyone. If you have positive relationship with China and the United States, it'll be beneficial. If everyone got along, she'll be great, right? But the United States want to be on top. They want to impose their geopolitical hegemon. They don't want any alternative to capitalism. So this is him saying, I know that shit makes sense about peace and trade, but you're going to give up your prosperity in order for your security. That's the most gangster shit. Like, the mob has nothing over the U.S. government. You guys serious? Feel free to interrupt, guys. I think Jay, you're unmuted. Do you want to chime in before I continue?
I was just going to say that he's saying, like, you want to go with us or we'll kill you. Yes. Because that's really what America does.
So I'll play that part again, and then I'll play the whole video through after that, because I want you guys to hear that part again. And it gets even more unhinged, because this is his evil speech moment. Where was this? I got to look at the tweet. CIS.org. Fuck is that? Sorry, I'm blanking on it. I gotta look that up. I gotta see what conference this is. But let's listen to that part again, because unbelievable.
You're in a quandary for sure. Everybody knows what the quandary is. Security-wise, you really want to go with us. It makes just a lot more sense, right? And you understand that security is more important than prosperity, because if you don't survive, you're not going to prosper. Survival is of the utmost importance, because you can't pursue any other goals if you don't survive, right? So security's got to be number one. So you'll sacrifice prosperity for security, right? That's what will happen. That's why you'll be with us. Now, some people say there's an alternative. You can go with China, right? You have a choice here. You can go with China rather than the United States. There's two things I'll say about that. Number one, if you go with China, you want to understand you are our enemy. You are then deciding to become an enemy of the United States. Because we're talking about an intense security competition. You're either with us or against us. And if you're trading extensively with China and you're friendly with China, You're undermining the United States.
Ah,
in this
Jesus
security
fucking
competition.
Christ.
You're feeding the beast from our perspective. And that is not going to make us happy. And when we are not happy, you do not want to underestimate how nasty we can be. Right? Just ask Fidel Castro.
Is there any doubt over who's the bad guys here?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say, am I unmuted? Yeah, I'm unmuted.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, John Mearsheimer is not like, because I've heard various different lectures from him in the past. He's not really like this neocon kind of guy. I think he was phrasing what he said in the point of view of the U.S. empire.
Oh, I see. I must have misread it.
Yeah, so John Mearsheimer, he's been amazing on the Russia-Ukraine. Like, he's put out really good videos on it, on saying how the U.S. and how NATO, propagated this war, essentially. So I think he was.
I see it now. I see it now. I must have missed his sarcasm.
Yeah. So I mean, so I think that's what he's trying to get at, and he's not wrong. Like,
yeah, he's not wrong.
There's a famous quote that goes something like, "It's dangerous to be America's enemy. It's even more dangerous to be America's ally," which is like, which I guess kind of goes towards what he said. Like, he was basically saying, you got to fucking bend to our knee. You basically have to fucking bend to our fucking knee. Otherwise, we'll fucking we'll unleash the hounds of hell on you, essentially, is what he's saying. Like, I think he was just, kind of like just.
Yeah, I see what he's doing now.
I
see what he's doing. I see, because he was speaking on a sarcastic way. I see what he's doing now. But the point still stands, because that's essentially been U.S. policy with them saying submarines, the insane propaganda. Once again, Caitlin Johnstone does a great job covering this, like, because she lived in Australia. The propaganda there is like the level of the BBC, the level that we have here in this country. Whenever I say the United States is the most propagandized country in the world, I still believe that. The most common pushback I get that's hard to rebuke is when people say the BBC. I'm like, yeah, the UK is really fucking bad. Apparently, Australia is really bad. I still think the United States is the worst, because they're the most effective, I believe. Because I think people see the BBC, I think people see the Australian news, and they still yeah, this shit propaganda. This shit state TV. There are people that still watch the U.S. shit and they think this shit is real, and this shit is the most cartoonish shit you ever see. That's why we show it to you guys. We laugh at this shit, and people in America think this shit is real. That's the difference. You know what I mean? Everyone have propaganda, but people fucking believe our shit for some reason. It's ridiculous.